Penelope has this really diverse portfolio, and it's definitely a spectrum. Lighter, easier stuff, more entry-level stuff. There's more complex stuff. There's higher proof stuff. There's stuff with barrel finishings. There's stuff without barrel finishings. And see, the idea is that it's this big bourbon spectrum, and then depending on your desired flavor profile, or depending, what you're particularly interested in, you can find a product on the Penelope spectrum that kind of meets that. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brian Donnelly. I'm an expert in distilled spirits with 9 years experience in the alcoholic beverage industry, and my goal is to educate consumers more about the alcoholic beverages they enjoy so they can make better shopping and drinking decisions. I made a video in the past where I explain all the intricacies between all the different labels and how they're different and how they're made. But I did not do any tasting in that video, and one bit of feedback I received is that customers were interested in me actually tasting these products and talking about my tasting experience with them. So for this video, I selected 4 labels from the Penelope brand. That's the Penelope 4-grain, which is the white label, the new Penelope Wheated, as well as the Penelope Rosé Cask finish, and the Penelope barrel strength. I'm going to taste through all 4 products here on camera. I'm going to compare the official tasting notes from the brand with my own thoughts. I'm going to check the average retail price for these products in my home market, and I'm going to let you guys know the most important question: are these products worth the money? If you're interested in watching my previous video on the Penelope brand, I'll leave a link below in the description. If you're enjoying this content but don't care about the video component of these videos, I highly encourage you to check out my podcast. It's just the audio component of these videos, and you can find it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you consume your podcasts. I'll leave a link below in the description. All right, let's get into it. The next product is the Rosé Wine Cask Finish Penelope. So you can see, of course, we're talking rosé all day. You got that pink label. Again, you have that unified Penelope packaging, with the biggest difference just being the color of the label to indicate, which particular option it is. And you notice that the 4-grain has like an actual label, the white label here, but when you shift to everything else, it just has the label at the bottom. So it's a very interesting way of distinguishing the kind of entry-level flagship product from everything else. The Rosé Cask finish was, at least initially, an allocated product, a product that had inventory restrictions from the producer. It was part of the Cooper series, where they paired Penelope with, different wine cask finishings from around the world. But to my understanding, the Penelope Rosé, it's an everyday item now. It's no longer allocated. There's no longer restrictions. So if you have any interest in this product, along with all 4 products that I'm talking about today, there should be no inventory restrictions. You should be able to find all 4 of these items in every single market. Now, that's not always the case for every single Penelope. Some of the Penelopes are allocated. They're super allocated. But the majority of the portfolio is available every single day. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to talk about it. I really try to stay away from talking about allocated products, limited release products, because I want this content to be evergreen. And again, I'm talking about value. That's the big takeaway from my channel. I want to be able to communicate great spirit options to customers that they can get every single day, and let them know, yes, this product is interesting. Here's the backstory on it. And most importantly, is it worth the retail price that you're being charged? Interesting fact I actually found out at the launch event that I went to for the Penelope Wheated is that the Cooper series, which I always assumed it was called the Cooper series because, they're doing all these interesting secondary cask finishings. Cooper, someone that makes barrels. But the Cooper series, the name actually is drawn from Danny's son. So Danny's son is named Cooper, which was part of the inspiration for the Cooper's series. So I thought that was a really kind of niche, inside baseball bit of information that I did not previously know. So you have the Penelope brand, which is named after Mike's daughter, Penelope. And then you have the Cooper series within the Penelope brand, more or less named after Danny's son, Cooper. All right, as I mentioned earlier, I did a write-up on my website about the Penelope portfolio. I'm just going to read what I wrote about the Penelope Rosé. So the Rosé Cask finish is the first installment in the Cooper series, pairing Penelope whiskey with wine casks from interesting winemaking regions around the world. This product is a blend of 3 bourbon mash bills containing all 4 grains that average 74% corn, 17% wheat, 6% rye, and 3% malted barley. The bourbon is aged between 4 and 5 years in new American oak barrels with a number 4 char for the staves and a number 2 char for the barrel head, then finished for 4 months in French Grenache rosé wine casks from the southern Rhone region of France. The final product is non-chill filtered and bottled in small batches at 94 proof or 47% ABV. I also learned during the Penelope Weeded launch that the rosé, they're sourcing those barrels from a barrel broker, and they're using 100% Grenache, again, from the southern Rhone Valley. I was very skeptical of this product, right? I love wine cast finish products, especially if they're done well. I find them super interesting. I drink a lot of wine. I drink a lot of bourbon. I find anytime you're kind of mixing the two together stylistically, I find that very interesting. It creates interesting conversations about wine, interesting conversations around bourbon. But rosé, for any of you that drink rosé, you know that rosé, especially more entry-level rosé, does not see barrel. That's just not part of the flavor profile. It's meant to be young, vibrant, fresh, good acidity. These are flavor profiles that are not compatible with time in barrel. Yes, there are really complex rosés out there that see time in barrel. Like 2 years ago, I got the opportunity to visit Chateau d'Esclans, which is the wine producer that makes the massive rosé brand Whispering Angels in Provence. It's an incredible experience, and I got to try some products that see 100% new oak. It just absolutely blew my mind of the kind of complexity that you can achieve for that kind of Provence style of rosé. So anyway, so that's one of the reasons I was very skeptical, right? Rosé, whether it comes from Provence or the Rhone Valley, does not typically see time in barrel. So, why would you fill a barrel with rosé just to dump it and then fill it with whiskey? It seemed kind of strange to me. I'm very excited to try this product again on camera because it's been a long time since I've gotten a chance to sample this product. And I love rosé. I know a lot of people might think that the rosé cast finish is, Penelope trying to capture the female demographic. Stereotypically women drink rosé. I learned from my time in Provence that you can drink rosé any time of the year, and all age groups, all genders enjoy rosé. I drink rosé all year round, and rosé is not just for women, especially premium dry styles of rosé. So I'm excited to revisit this, and the fact that they're bottling it at 94 proof, and this is a product that is non-chill filtered, sees secondary cast finishing. To me, that speaks to this is a product that is going after a serious whiskey drinker, regardless of gender. Someone that expects a certain degree of complexity, a certain degree of proof, or alcohol by volume. And so I'm really excited to try this and let you guys know what I think, and then of course we'll talk about pricing here in a moment. All right, I got a brand new bottle here. I don't know if it's subjective, but you can almost see there's like a tint. I don't think it's quite showing up on camera, but compared to the other ones, there's almost like an interesting tint shading to this particular whiskey. And again, I don't know if it's just subjective, but I wonder, how does that secondary cast finish, from the rosé affect the color of the final product? So the aroma is described as candy, fruit, and cream, floral and herbal notes. I would say still very subtle nose. Maybe not quite as restrained as the first two options we drank, but that candied fruit and cream, I think is a really accurate description. I'm getting a little floral. I don't know if I'm quite getting herbal, but that cream, candied fruit and cream, that is super accurate. It's really nice. It's relatively subtle, but man, that is really interesting. They hit that spot on. The body is described as creamy sweetness transitions from the forward notes and into the body, herbal and floral and strawberry cream. Now that is a description. So let's see how it tastes. That's got big flavor. Big flavor, let's just put this in the context. Big flavor compared to the previous options that I have talked about. But I'm noticing this through line with Penelope. There's good flavor here, but there's a certain finesse to it. Certain bourbon brands, especially perhaps what we might call legacy brands, they have these big flavor profiles that are big and bold, ton of barrel flavors, ton of baking spice, but there's no kind of finesse to them. And I think this it's got good complexity, but there's this certain kind of finesse to it where you can't quite put your finger on it. So I'm going to revisit this. The finish is described as rich and creamy vanilla with hints of strawberry, savory finish with lingering notes. Going back to the body, that creamy sweetness transitions from the forward notes into the body, herbal, floral, and strawberry cream. There's this richness to this product that is not quite traditional. And no questions asked, that comes from that rosé finish. So it's very interesting to see how that changes the flavor profile. This is very tasty. This is very drinkable. I'm enjoying this much more than I would have initially thought. I would have thought that cask finishing bourbon with a rosé cask finish is kind of a waste of good rosé and perhaps a good waste of bourbon. But this works. It's nice. Again, it's good flavors, good complexity, but there's this kind of restrained finesse to this that I think a very specific consumer will like. If you want something that's just kick in the teeth of big barrel flavors, big stereotypical bourbon flavors, this maybe isn't for you. This is probably for someone that maybe you've been enjoying the 4-grain and you're interested in trading up to the next most premium option, but you want something that's still a bit more finesse driven and interesting in its flavor profiles and perhaps a tad unconventional. This is the product definitely for you. Time to ask the most important question. Is this worth the money? So in my home market, this product should retail somewhere between, let's call it $43 and $46. So you're still under 50. So do I think this product's worth it? I still do. I will err on the side of optimistic when it comes to this product. Again, when you're paying between $43 and $46 for a bottle of bourbon, there's so many incredible options, right? So to say something is worth it or not worth it becomes a bit subjective because you have access to so many great options, right? If you are interested in something a bit more experimental, with beautiful packaging and interesting production notes, I think this product is worth it, and I do think you will be very happy with your purchase. I don't think you'll regret paying $43 to $46 for this. And again, because this product is a bit more niche, it might be one of those things you only buy once, right? You spend $43 to $46 for this, you drink it, you enjoy it, but then maybe you decide that you want a more kind of traditional legacy bourbon brand flavor profile, and that's okay. Again, all distilled spirits, particularly within bourbon and even within the Penelope portfolio, as I mentioned, is a spectrum of different flavors. And so this falls one specific area of the flavor profile spectrum. And, I think it might be worth it, especially it might be worth it once. And, maybe you love it and this is a product you keep buying over and over again. And maybe it isn't. Or maybe, some other bourbon brand is more your desired flavor profile. All right, the last product I'm going to talk about today is the barrel strength. So again, same Penelope packaging. We now have a red label down here. So Penelope has an absolutely ton of different options, right? And, I think my mouth would go numb if I tried to taste them all in one sitting. I just chose 4. And I chose the 4 that I honestly had on hand. But I think it provides a nice, interesting range, right? You have the kind of, you have the more entry-level option. You have the new option. You have the cask strength or barrel proof option for your more serious bourbon drinker. And then you have at least one of the wine cask finish options in the rosé, which you should be able to find, in every single market. I think this provides a nice sample for the Penelope portfolio. And again, I definitely plan on doing a part 2 where I bring in, the architect and maybe the toasted bourbon, toasted rye, maybe pull something else from the Cooper series, and be able to kind of taste through those. Again, I talk through pretty much all those products on my last Penelope video, but again, I wasn't tasting those. I was just highlighting how they're different from a production standpoint. I'm going to be reading again from the Penelope article, which I wrote for my website, which I'll link below in the description. So I'm going to read what I wrote for the barrel strength. The barrel strength is a blend of 3 bourbon mash bills containing all 4 grains that average 80% corn, 7% wheat, 7% rye, and 6% malted barley. The bourbon is distilled in Indiana and Kentucky, aged for a minimum of 4 years in new American oak barrels, uncut with water, non-chill filtered, and bottled in small batches at barrel strength, which typically ranges between 112 to 116 proof, which is 56 to 58% ABV. So just looking at the bottle I have, this is bottled at 119 proof or 57% ABV, and this is batch number 20. So again, I showed you guys the label earlier. This highlights, it's a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys, bottled at barrel strength. It's that 4-grain mash bill, corn, rye, wheat, malted barley, distilled in Indiana and Kentucky. And minimum 4-year age statement and non-chill filtered. Okay. And if I didn't mention this earlier, all the pricing that I talked about is just for 750 milliliter bottles. At this time, I believe Penelope only is available in a 750 milliliter bottle, but I'm sure with the brands growing that they'll start adding different sizes, especially for some of their core stuff. So I'm sure you can be on the lookout for that. All right. I got a brand new bottle here. Let's taste it. The little pull tabs are very hidden on these. So I expect, we're going to have a big jump in proof. So the last product I drank was 97 proof, and this product is 119 proof. So, nice little jump in proof. But as, barrel proof bourbons or cask strength bourbons go, 119 proof is quite low. I would say stereotypically cask strength or barrel proof bourbon is going to fall somewhere between, 125 and 135. And then you start getting, honestly, most stuff above 130, 135, you start getting in that hazmat territory. So the aroma on this is described as sweet caramel with hints of maple syrup and candied sweetness. Should be no surprise that this is going to have a much bigger nose, at that higher proof. Additional alcohol does not mean it's just more boozy. When you have a distilled spirit, additional alcohol equals additional flavor. And with alcohol comes flavor. So when you dilute a product, you actually reduce its flavor. You dial back its flavor a bit. So it should be no surprise that something from Penelope that's bottled at 119 proof is going to have a bigger nose and it's going to be much bigger on the palate. Now the question is the proof well integrated with the other flavors? So the body is described as sweetness transitions to notes of cinnamon, barrel char, and slight maple syrup. You definitely feel that bump in proof, but not as much as I was expecting. That is good. That is really well integrated. There is good flavor on there. For 119 proof, this is soft. This is super soft. You could tell me this is 100 proof. Shit, you could probably tell me this is the same 97 proof as the Rosé, and I would believe you. This drink's really soft for 119 proof. And, I typically don't drink anything, just personally, I don't drink anything under 100 proof. This is really nice. It's good flavor. It's not quite as bold as I was expecting, I was expecting, I guess, perhaps a more stereotypical legacy bourbon flavor profile, but there's still that through line of Penelope. It tastes a little different, it's a little more finesse driven. It's not quite so, not that any good bourbon is one-dimensional, but, stereotypical, I should say. So that body, sweetness transitions to notes of cinnamon, barrel char, slight maple syrup. Definitely getting, I could definitely see a little bit of that baking spice cinnamon. Much more kind of barrel flavors at 119 proof. But there's still that sweet softness to it. And I don't know if, that's probably from the wheat or just the way they manage their barrels. That is really nice. All right, let me revisit this. Definitely coats your whole palate. The finish is described as spicy cinnamon, finishes with amazing lingering spice and heat. It's got a really nice finish. It's got a long finish, especially compared to the other options. Still get that cinnamon. And there's a little booze in there, but it's not bad. Good spice, lingering spice. I would say it's a pretty accurate palate and finish descriptor. But more importantly, this is really enjoyable. I think you're now firmly in the territory of, you're a serious bourbon drinker. You want something new. You like cask strength, or you like products that are 100 proof or stronger. I think this is definitely for you. There's a softness to it and a finesse to it that I think makes it unique. I think it makes it very enjoyable. And I think it makes it different. There's so many incredible options out there for bourbon, right? And, you got to wonder, how dramatically different can these products be? And I would say this, has a recognizably slightly different taste to it. And the proof is very well integrated. It's relatively soft, very enjoyable, very drinkable. So let's see, is this worth the money? In my market, this product's going to retail somewhere between, let's call it $56 and $61. So we're now above $50, mid 50s to 60. Do I think this product is worth it? I really do. I do think this product's worth it. And I think I'd be a lot more confident in saying that than some of the other options, right? The rosé, I think, is subjective. I think the rosé is worth the money if you are one of the target kind of consumers that I described, or you just want to try it once, try something new. But I think the barrel proof, I think someone that has progressed up the Penelope ladder, you've drank the 4-grain, the white label, then you progress to the wheated, then the rosé. I think you would get to a point where you'd very much enjoy this, especially maybe on a big rock or diluted with a little bit of water. But, if you're a serious bourbon drinker and you like cask strength bourbon and high proof bourbon and you're expecting a lot of flavor, you have high expectations for your bourbon and you demand a lot of flavor, I think you very much would enjoy this particular product for $56 to $61. So I think this product definitely is worth the money, and I would really, really be willing to recommend this to pretty much anyone that is serious about bourbon. And even if, like, for example, Maker's Mark. Maker's Mark is a wheated bourbon. Their cask strength option is bottled at a much lower proof, and it's meant to be a very easy entry level cask strength. So again, maybe, I think you're a serious bourbon drinker, you'll very much enjoy this. But if you are a developing bourbon drinker and you are developing your palate and developing, and trying to learn what you like, then I think this product is also perfect for you as well. I would feel very confident in recommending this to a wide variety of consumers. All right, that's it. Part 1 of my Penelope tasting series. Again, on this channel, I'm going to highlight value. And so, I hope to revisit some of the other options from the Penelope brand. But I want to start with these 4. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something. Please give this video a like and consider subscribing. If you would like to be notified whenever I have new content on my website or this YouTube channel, please consider subscribing to my email newsletter. I'll leave a link below in the description. If you'd like to support this channel further, please consider becoming a Patreon member or gift me a cocktail through the link below in the description. And finally, if you have feedback, recommendations, products you would like to see, information you want to know, please send me an email. I personally read every single email I receive. I do my best to respond to all the emails that I can. And it's this kind of feedback that has shaped this channel. So, originally I just wanted to talk about the information behind the brands. And because of feedback from viewers, they said, what is information about whiskey or about distilled spirits without tasting them, which was a great reminder that I needed to hear. And that is how this whole tasting component developed on this channel. That is where this, the series that I like to think of, Is It Worth the Money? Where I taste a product and view the average retail price in my market and let customers know, is this worth the money? Developed from viewer feedback, which I'm very grateful for. Thank you so much again for watching. Please leave a comment. Please shoot me an email. And as always, please drink responsibly. Cheers.